Language is probably the hardest problem in science. Nobody really knows how it works, and nobody really knows where it came from. The foremost linguist of our time is Noam Chomsky, who's made actually considerable contributions to how we put language together. But his notion of how language evolved, I think, is positively biblical. And if Chomsky is right, then evolutionary theory would be destroyed in Darwin's own terms.
Evidence for the Tower of Babel.
Yeah.
There is neurological evidence as well as similarities of early languages.
Talks about how there was one language, right? Mm-hmm. And then it says that the whole earth was one language and of one speech.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they were building a tower to the sky, and God came down to confound their language, which in Hebrew means to mix, and their speech.
And the Lord said, Behold, the people is one, and they have all one language, and this they begin to do. And now nothing will be restrained from them, which they had imagined to do. Go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech.
You guys ever heard of aphasia?
Yeah, I have.
Aphasia is a disorder that results from damage to portions of the brain that are responsible for language.
Yeah. So aphasia is like a contorting of the language, right? So some people say, speak the language, they mix up words, put in different places, but it makes sense to them. Other people talk with accent. There's been people that actually woke up out of comas and spoke entirely different languages that they subconsciously heard through their life, right?
That's what I've heard. I don't know if it's true, but I've heard of it.
5, a Metro teenager is struggling to recover from a severe concussion. His parents say when he woke up, though, he was speaking only Spanish, a language he had never spoken fluently before.
Individuals who've got global aphasia have got severe communication difficulties and may be extremely limited in their ability to speak or comprehend language. They may be unable to say even a few words or may repeat the same words and phrases over and over again. They may have trouble understanding even simple words and sentences.
So that explains how that scenario could happen. And then once they couldn't understand each other, they left. Now, if they got aphasia and they changed accents, say, and they mixed up their words so it didn't make sense to each other, that explains why all the early languages are also similar.
Portugal and India share a lot of common history ever since Vasco da Gama's voyage. But what may come as a surprise is that the Portuguese language already shared many similarities with the numerous languages spoken in India, including inflection, word structure, pronunciation, and vocabulary.
Sort of the Tower of Babel, it explains how something hit their head, gave them a concussion, gave them aphasia.
Aphasia usually occurs suddenly, often following a stroke or a head injury. Stroke occurs when a blood clot or leaking or burst vessel cuts off blood flow to the part of the brain. Brain cells die when they don't receive enough of their normal supply of blood, which carries oxygen and other important nutrients.
They separated, but it didn't change their language, it mixed their language, which is why we see similarities in the different texts throughout the world.
It may say something like, you know that Smoodle Pinkard, and then I want to get him around and take care of him like you want before. As a result, it's often difficult to follow what the person is trying to say.
All of those early languages speak similar or write similar.
Rick, I don't think that the linguistic sciences have established by a preponderance of the evidence that all languages descend from one language.
Because people scattered, it came out of Africa about 90,000 years ago, scattered around the world.
So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth.
The languages that they use adapted to geography and culture and religion, perhaps. So that's why these things all became different.
I think that is just wishful thinking, right?
Well, all the early languages are very similar, and even if we look at like English comes from Greek, all the languages are connected somehow, some way, right?
All of the early languages are similar, right? I don't know if that's true. I mean, that's kind of a speculation, isn't it, right? The two words that are, one's in Hebrew and one's in Old Japanese.
Yes.
And they're so similar that it defies reason that it could be anything other than the Tower of Babel. Mm-hmm. What is it? I will not be acknowledging anything until you give me those words. Go ahead. What is it?
Please.
You guys are just making yourselves look silly. You have no argument and you're terrible.
Okay.
Genesis 11. And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. And it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they said to one another, "Go to, let us make brick, and burn them thoroughly." And they had brick for stone, and slime had they for mortar. And they said, "Go to, let us build us a city and a tower, whose top may reach unto heaven. And let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth." And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower, which the children of men builded. And the Lord said, "Behold, the people is one, and they have all one language, and this they begin to do. And now nothing will be restrained from them, which they had imagined to do. Go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech." So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. Therefore is the name of it called Babel, because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth. And from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth.
Someone in chat said, "We got Chomsky in here." Yeah.
The foremost linguist of our time is Noam Chomsky, who's made actually considerable contributions to how we put language together. But his notion of how language evolved, I think, is positively biblical.
Because I don't think this is a gish gab. I think you're following along a path.
If Chomsky is right, then evolutionary theory would be destroyed in Darwin's own terms.